Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Live Sessions with a GM. I am so glad to see all of you here. We have an amazing special guest with us today. We haven't ever done that before on Live GM, so I think that's pretty awesome. I see people are starting to come through. Fantasy Grounds College, hello. I need to talk to you fellows later on after the show because I need help with things in Fantasy Grounds. Again, it's not working for me. There's certain things that I need to have a look at, but I'm fairly certain I'm in good hands with you fellows. So, my guest is sitting in the wings. I'm not going to keep him sitting there for too long. There's all sorts of questions coming through. I'm busy looking at that. I've moved the question stuff over there. That's why I'm sitting over there. I'm wearing this Japanese-inspired golf shirt. It's quite funky, I think, in honor of our guest who's going to be on the show today. So, there we go. There is a Discord server, absolutely. Please, if someone will share that, I will activate it on YouTube for you. Share it and you get 100 experience points. There we go. Share it and you'll get 100 experience points. Cameron is the monster to beat. He's already been wounded after last week's show. So if you want to take the title of monster of the show for today, you've got to beat Cameron. That's done obviously through Super Chats and through subscribing to the Twitch channel. Right, so you have a Japanese golfer on your show. No, I'm wearing a Japanese golfer t-shirt. I don't have a Japanese golfer on my show, although that would be pretty awesome, but a little bit short interview because I don't speak Japanese. So it would be sort of konnichiwa. Thanks for being on the show. Right, so let's meet our guest. Hopefully this works because we were setting this up briefly. It kind of looks weird. It looks weirder than I thought it did, and well, I've just got to tweak something. Just give me a second. It wouldn't be the show if it wasn't me tweaking stuff, right? I mean, that's how it goes. So let's just see if I can get his hair back. He's looking too sexy today. That's the problem. The camera's like, no, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. All right, so he's got a bit of a green box around him, but that's live television. That's live YouTube, Twitch, whatever it is that we're doing. I don't even know what we're doing anymore. It's all just chaos. Right, so yes, didn't think this one through, but there we go. Cody, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. It's Cody from Taking 20, everybody. Yeah. Screaming, running around, and all the fanning and awesomeness.
I'm mostly here just to give you issues. Green screening out my blonde hair. That's really the reason why I was like, hey guy, can I be on your show today so I can give you panic 5 minutes right before you go live?
There you go.
I think it's been successful.
You have, yeah. We've got a new
leader
support there.
amongst
Hologram.
goblins
Cody has been successful. I'm kind of going, oh my god, I don't know. All right, so we've got all this kind of stuff. So Cody's going to be joining us for the next 40 minutes or so as we go through this very special episode this week. Now, last week was basically just wall to wall. It was 2 hours of your questions. Now, we are still going to be having your questions. Don't worry about it. But you've now got Cody here as well, so you can bombard him with questions and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, great.
Yeah, surprise! You don't appear on the show without having to answer questions. So we got some questions. If you've got questions, send them through. I've got the restream up and running, so I can have a look and see what questions you are sending through. Thank you for that, Fantasy Grounds College. Look at that. Cameron is almost down and knocked off of his post. So there is that. We're also going to be looking at creative writing today. Last week we didn't do any creative writing. This week we've got lots of creative writing, so hopefully Cody can give us some insight into that as well. If you don't know who Cody from Taking 20 is, he is basically on his way to becoming the biggest YouTuber in Dungeons and Dragons advice. I mean, you've now eclipsed WebDM.
No, not yet.
What? One people.
I mean, there's Matt Colville. There's all kinds of people. Basically, the title I'm going for, guy, is the clickbaitiest of the YouTubers, as I get called so often. So no, it's been crazy. So yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. I just want to chat with people, and people listen sometimes, and then other times they leave mean comments, and I'm the biggest of that stuff soon, I think. Of people leaving mean comments.
Leaving mean comments. Well,
the most polarizing. How about that?
The most polarizing. Wow.
Except for Andrew. Because I think Andrew gets a lot of hate, too.
The wrong kind
raining
it's
gold!
Raining gold! Look at that,
Gold,
Dead Ozzy Gamer.
gold,
Thank you for that.
gold!
Knocked everyone off of their posts, without a doubt. He's our new monster to beat. 2,000 hit points. You're going to have to knock that one out. Okay, we've got some questions coming through, so let's bounce onto some questions.
Sure.
The first question Dead Ozzy Gamer asks is, Cody, who does your hair?
I just recently have gone through a change. Not my hairstyle change. That's the only change I've been through.
I think a change of hairdresser or...
Yeah, I think Supercuts. I walked in and was like, hey, I used to have a mohawk. Back in the day, and you might not know this guy, but you might not even be able to see it. Many years ago, over a decade ago, when I was 18, 19, something like that, I was the guy with the eyebrow ring, with like the spikes and stuff. I had the big earrings in, and I wore like a big crazy mohawk, and I was a lead singer in a garage band and a music major in college. And after that, I had to be all professional for the last 7 years, and finally, it's like I don't have to be professional anymore. I'm on YouTube. I can do whatever I want. So
there you go.
Supercuts.
Lovely.
Supercuts did it.
Supercuts. There you go. Right. So that was a salient question for role players all over the world to know about. Thank you for that. Is this live? Says Bradomski. I think it is live. Dear God, it feels like it's live. Everything's not working so well, so it must be live because I'm running it. Max Headroom. Wait a minute. Have I got too much? Yeah, I've got miles of headroom on this thing. I really didn't have much time to set this up. This was very 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 on the fly type of stuff. Right. Next question. Honorable 596 says, question: you probably won't like how most fantasy worlds have all of their dwarves be exactly the same as the ones in Warcraft. But would you like it if a DM took the idea of all our dwarves are the same and just ran with it, making all dwarves identical clones? And they will, and their well-defended holds the cloning facilities and assembly lines that make them more of them and their gear. Interesting idea. Cloned dwarves. They're
cloning, like this is bringing episode 2 flashbacks. I think.
Right.
I mean, maybe is there? I mean, that's a cool concept, but I think there'd have to be like a significant reason to jumpstart that society into that direction. What happened is this, a cool thing would be, do you ever play Morrowind, Guy?
No, of Morrowind. I'm more of a Skyrim player myself.
Oh, okay. So same world, same concept. The dwarves are gone.
Yes.
The dwarves have been gone. I think in Morrowind you actually meet the last dwarf ever. So it'd be cool if he started cloning and stuff, because they kind of do like a little tech, and they do weird animatrons and stuff like that, and they kind of hint at that civilization being gone. So yeah, that would be a really cool concept for a race of, hey, this happened and they are on the way back due to what the last guy started cloning himself or whatever. They're all the same people. That'd be interesting.
That would be. I think I like that, Cody. I do. Another idea to look at is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. There was a race called the Vorta, and the Vorta are all clones. So what happens is the heroes defeat this Vorta Wayung, and a couple episodes later he's back, and they're like, hang on, but we disintegrated. He was like, well, that was my previous clone who was unfortunately incompetent. I have now replaced him. I'm identical, but I'm better. And they went through, I think eventually they ended up on Wayung 6. So yes, there's that. No spoilers for the Star Wars film coming up later on, but the trailer ends with a certain... And we all know who makes that if you watch Star Wars in 1985. And there was an entire series of books based on cloning happening there. So I think clones can be quite fun. The idea of dwarves being all of the same, absolutely, yes. That sort of Scottish dwarf or German dwarf, really, those are the two variants that you have. It could be interesting to sort of maybe have like Japanese dwarves, a little samurai running around cutting off your kneecaps or something. Anyway, let's go on. People are saying awesome seeing you on the channel, Cody, so thank you for taking the time to be here with us. What made you guys decide to start making YouTube videos, says Matthew Sarf. What made you start making YouTube videos, Cody?
That's such a long story.
Okay,
the short version is I found Roll20. You guys
found Roll20.
I found Roll20 back in the day. I found Roll20. At the time, I was business sales, and I started being able to reconnect with all my old buddies. 5th edition had just was like right on the cusp of coming out, so I don't even think 5th edition was totally out when I discovered Roll20. And started playing, started consuming content. Matt Click with the Fistful of Dice was a massive inspiration to me. And I learned Roll20 so much, I kind of became a really big savant in it. I'll toot my own horn. Roll20 actually hired me. A lot of people don't realize that. Roll20 actually hired me to do some conversions for modules for them. I was so proficient with their system. And so I wanted to share some of those things online. And then I thought, I kind of want to talk a little bit about D&D advice. And I thought, who's going to listen to me? So I started with Roll20 tutorials, which are still up on the channel. Right. And then I started shifting over into my D&D advice stuff, and that was it. Matt with the Fistful of Dice was a huge inspiration. Ironically, Guy, I'm pretty sure Matt hates me. I've never met the guy, but like I've gotten feedback from people and stuff like that. Like I don't think he vibes me at all in his group. Oh, wow. So it's okay. Funny to me. I've always kind of looked up to Matt, and he had some really great series with the Provokers. I don't know if you've ever seen that series. And so Matt Click with the Fistful of Dice was probably one of the biggest reasons I started making videos.
Interesting, lovely, absolutely lovely. I'm going to bore you all with my journey into how I got to make videos because I've spoken about it thousands of times on the channel.
TV. Blah blah blah. You wanted to get rich quick.
Winning the D&D competition every year, to the point that no one wanted to enter because they didn't want to compete. So I said, right, well that's disgusting. So I immediately resigned from competitive play, and said, well anyone can do it. You just need a few little tricks and things. So that's how I got into it. That's the very short. That's actually the shortest version I've ever had. Anyway, so well done for getting that out of me. Respect to both of you. Prost, says Todd Apotamus. Prost. So yes, Prost. Absolutely.
Oh, dude, I didn't realize you were drinking. I'll get a beer.
No, that's water. That's not vodka.
What kind of channel is this, guy?
There we go. Anyway, all right. So we did promise you creative writing this week, much more so than we had last week. Some questions are still coming through, which is great. I really like that. The creative writing that we're going to be looking at today is going to be based off of the idea that we need to unpack and explore things, because I watched Aquaman. I can't even say it. I can't. Cody, just tell me the name.
Aquaman. It's Aquaman, dude.
Aquaman. Yes.
Aquaman.
Yeah. Well, you don't say aqueduct. You say aqueduct, don't you?
But this.
Same thing.
Aqua,
water.
But isn't the word aqua Spanish for?
No, it's Latin for water.
It's Latin. Okay.
Well, Latin Romance language, yes. For water, yes. But you say aqueduct, not aqueduct. So why Aquaman?
Well, they probably got it wrong.
Anyway. Yes, I watched that film and I was totally and utterly disappointed, I must admit. As a film, it was entertaining, but the moment you actually started thinking about what they were doing, I got very bored. So I'm going to be ranting and raving about that in next week's GM show. Not next week's GM show, the week after that. But for now, what I wanted to do for the creative writing is something that we don't necessarily often do. Is we take the books, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or Lovecraft or sci-fi, and we take the world as it's kind of just a transposition of Earth and everything that evolved and happened on Earth, and it's just in a cool environment. So, point in case, I want you in the next 10 minutes or so, in the next 10 minutes, so until half past the hour, in the next 10 minutes, I want you to create a character, just a simple character, just a name. This is Brian. Brian lives with his family. He has a day job. Just something like that. Just a name. Just to give us a name of the character and a little idea as to what Brian does or whatever your character does. And then I want you to choose an unusual environment. And the unusual environment that I want you to choose from is you can choose from the elemental plane of fire, the elemental plane of fire, or the elemental plane of fire. So you can choose from any one of those three as to which environment you want to choose. The elemental plane of fire or fire or fire.
This isn't something for me, right? This is something for your audience.
No, this is something well, you can participate, absolutely, but this is for the viewers. We do a creative writing challenge just to get the creative juices flowing, and then you're gonna post that up. No, it's not the elemental plane of the campfire, Ben Schwartz, not the campfire. It is the elemental plane of fire. So, an akin would be the surface of a star, a red star, or perhaps a dwarf star, one that's in collapse. Not a neutron star, but a red star. So, the elemental plane of fire is the one that you can choose to write about. So, I want you to think about your character, and I want you to think about what your character does And then I want you to think about what is unusual about the elemental plane of fire. What is something that is specific to the elemental plane of fire that you wouldn't find on the prime material plane? So have those two things in your mind, jot them down, send them through to the chat so we can start to unpack those. And you've now got 9 minutes because I've taken so long to explain this. So please participate in this. You'll see that we're going to build on this over the course of the next 2 hours. So we're going to explore and unpack. This is a creative writing exercise in terms of how to reimagine an entire environment and the impact that that environment will have on the characters that live within it. So bear that in mind. Keep that on your noggin as we go along. As you start to post them up, please just put at the front story, and just so that I can see who's doing what exactly. And in the meantime, you can also keep asking those questions. So we've got 110 people watching. Let's get some questions going through. Let's get some stories coming through. Let's start to unpack this idea. And you don't have to use the name Brian, by the way. Brian is probably unlikely the name that you will encounter on the plane of elemental fire. But yes, so let's get some of those things going through. In the meantime, Cody, do you know what's important about the 4th of May?
Absolutely. It's the day that I plant my son in front of the television and we watch Star Wars.
There you go. Okay, so absolutely. Do you know what?
Don't come at me like I don't know May the 4th.
No. It's a setup because do you know what the 3rd of May is all about? Can you give me a hint? Give me a hint. Can I give you a hint?
Is it regional or global or what?
It's global. It is linked to the first word in the title of the 4th of May's special movie. It's linked to you insofar as you have the world's biggest and most active, but you didn't get there first.
Okay.
Enough historically cryptic.
Biggest and most active, but we didn't get there first. The only thing that comes to mind that's global, that we have the biggest and the most active, but no, but see, we had the first, so it can't be that. I was thinking it had to do something with nukes, right? Because we got the biggest army and stuff like that. So the biggest army, something to do with armies.
What links Ronald Reagan to Darth Vader?
I'll link Ronald Reagan to Darth Vader. Ronald Reagan was was an actor before he became president.
Yes.
Disney makes
program.
Disney owns Star Wars, so there we go. There's
a link. He also had a Star Wars program.
Okay.
Which was all about space. So the 3rd of May is International Space Day. I didn't know this myself until it was mentioned to me yesterday. So today, May the 3rd, is International Space Day. I did not know this. It was a complete surprise to me. And then May the 4th, of course, is that. Now, what is Revenge of the Sith Day? Is that May the 6th? There's another May that's coming. Anyway, there's lots of May days are all over the place. I know the 1st of May is always a sort of surprising time in South Africa. It's the start of spring, but anyway. All right, so we've got some lovely stories coming through. Jorgen, a harvester of Estercol, a stone that on the elemental plane of fire is found in a liquid form. It is a favored drink of elementals. That's from Graxus. Jorgen, a harvester of Estercol, a stone that on the elemental plane of fire is found in liquid form, is a favorite drink of elementals. I like that. White Tiger 225 says, Hildorf is a merchant selling obscure and rare goods such as wood and water, not the common goods such as diamonds and steel that everyone else's produces. That's Hildorf. I like that one. Gary lives alone and works in a mine harvesting pure coal to feed the Fire Lord, because if he doesn't, then the Lord will start burning and eating everything in sight. That's from Richter Belmont. So that's pretty cool. The Board Lich says Matthew is busy documenting all the differences between the 3 planes of fire and hell. Poor old Matthew.
I'll give you one here. How about Aquila? Right, we'll go with Aquila, and he is the Phoenix Master.
The Phoenix Master.
He has to watch over, much like a falconer, or excuse me, I guess you would call it a falconer. he's a falconer for the Phoenixes, and he either watches over, maybe he watches over the rebirth or something along those lines.
I like it.
Phoenix Master.
There you go. Phoenix Masters, documentarians, liquid coal miners. The elemental fire, this is from Fantasy Grounds College, says the elemental fire needs to be slowed down so that it does not consume itself, and the denizens must work to contain its heat and flames on an annual basis. I think that could be some sacrificial rituals going on there, if you ask me. Diablo Bob got to International Space Day. I see there in the chat as well. Well done to that. Lance Pickett says, William is an insult comedian. Targeted a red star and got burnt. Okay, interesting.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Handsome Aaron says the elemental plane of fire doesn't provide any in-flight snacks. Yeah, well, that's budgetary cuts. It does happen, and there's not much you can do about it. You've just got to accept it. Otherwise, you're just going to get hot under the collar. No? Okay, never mind. All right.
Damn it.
Oh, dear God. All right, so we've got the last one from Terranatum here. Pete has a wonderful job. Thank you for that, Adrian1976. I should have also sorted out your $15 Patreon tier, by the way, on World Anvil, so you should have access to that dinosaur adventure that was released last month for the patrons. So Terranatum wrote, Pete has a wonderful job of grooming fuzzy salamanders. The plane of fire has made it possible to keep flaming salamanders from cooling down and freezing to death. Well, absolutely. There we go. All right, so...
So would a fire salamander be cold-blooded? And thus they can only exist on the plane of fire?
To keep them fired up so their blood doesn't freeze solid. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. What I like about that is it gives us an opportunity to go salamander hunting to get the cool stuff so we can survive. Or you can almost imagine a backpack that contains salamanders that are slowly being bled for their eyes to keep you from burning up. Anyway, so there's some interesting animal torture tactics that we can go with it. I quite like that. And then there's some other things coming through. Jarl Breadmaker, you've just arrived. The idea for the writing today is we're looking at the plane of fire. The plane of fire. And yeah, it's definitely we're looking at people who would live there and what would they do if they did live on the plane of fire. Now, I do see there's a comment from Bradomski. I can't get behind dinosaurs in my game. Feels too much like Jurassic Park. Have you ever played dinosaurs?
Focused.
Oh dear, there we go. Well, that's my question done.
I take it. I'm sorry, guy. I have no problem with dinosaurs in a dinosaur setting. That is totally, completely different from throwing dinosaurs into medieval fantasy, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay, I won't put dinosaurs into my medieval setting. I won't. It's too genre crossing, and
Yes.
The module that I have written, the adventure that came out this month, I'll be unpacking it in one of the GM shows because it's a useful tool to show how you can expand a simple adventure or a simple idea of an adventure into almost an entire campaign. So we're going to be looking at that. But yes, this dinosaur campaign is set specifically in a Lost World dinosaur-centric game.
I'm going to make a pitch for Guy here, guys. If you are not following his World Anvil Patreon, for shame, you're missing out. His art is unbelievable. Like your talent level is just ridiculous, to be honest. To be very candid with you, it pisses me off sometimes, Guy. It just really does.
And that's why you get invited to the show, Cody. Well, no, thank you. I do try and put in a lot of effort. I have too much fun writing them, as a matter of fact. But yes, no, it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. We do try and make them as valuable as possible. Okay, we are on the half hour. What that means is we're going to move to the second part of the creative writing challenge. So you've got your character now. You've got this character that's been done. You've got this sort of sense of the job that they're going to be doing, or at least you've got this idea in your head. What you now need to do, though, is now you need to look at the elemental plane of fire. And this is not from Dungeons and Dragons. Don't think that. Just think of this plane that is basically
being
just
carried far and
anywhere.
wide.
Unmade
Lord.
Gaming. There's someone that we don't see very often is hosting the stream. Yay! Thanks, Unmade Gaming.
What's up, Mike? What's up, Mike?
Mike's usually running games at this time of day. So there we are. Open World Addict says, "Hey, Guy and Cody. Hey, Open World Addict. Nice to have you on the stream." Right. So step two of your creative writing for today is what I want you to do is I want you to unpack what the following 4 things have in your world. In terms of how they've been impacted, are they needed, and if you put them in, why were they there in the first place? So, the wheel. The wheel. Was or is the wheel required in the plane of fire? Cooking. Does one need to cook one's food in the elemental plane of fire? Metal. Well, we've kind of had some people talking about coal that's being dug up, but what does metal do in the elemental plane of fire? We all know of that wonderful spell, heat metal. If you're in the elemental plane of fire, that spell seems to be in permanent operation. So think about, what does metal have to do in your world? And then finally, the last one is, I wrote it down. Oh, communication. How does your world communicate internally? What systems are in place? Are there letter couriers? Are there salamander, ski sled, dog things? Look at those 4 things. So the wheel, cooking, metal, and communication. What are those 4 things? You can just choose one of them.
Can I add one?
Absolutely.
Or is there, I'm going to steal your show here.
No, add one.
What is vegetation like?
What
is there literally not a drop of actual vegetation or living plants or anything or fungus or moss on the plane of fire?
Absolutely. That's a great one to add. And I'm going to just quickly whip through 4 or now 5 examples of where these exist in planet Earth so that we can have a look and compare with what's going on. The wheel was invented and was brought out all over the place, except in places where you think it would be needed most. So the Andes, for example, the Incan Empire did not have the wheel. They had a written language using string called kupu, which was absolutely amazing, but no wheel. Why didn't they have a wheel? They had lots of slaves who would run around, and they had a very, very, very comprehensive form of communication using this kupu, this knotted string which turned into actual text. It's sort of like a braille sort of skirt thing. So it was quite useful until you actually handed the message over, and then you were naked. But, it doesn't matter. That's what they had. So they didn't get the wheel. Africa didn't get the wheel. Why? Why didn't it get the wheel? It didn't have big empires. Unlike, say, the Aztecs, who also didn't have the wheel, by the way, but a lot of cultures didn't get the wheel for a very, very long time. Some had it, but didn't use it as a wheel. They just used it as a plate, and no one kind of thought about it. So the wheel has been quite an interesting little thing. It has determined all kinds of things. There's that wonderful, wonderful story about how the wheel, and in particular the width of a horse, has determined the size of the space shuttle that the US sent up into space. Quite an interesting long story. If you want, I can tell you that story if you don't know it. It's quite old, but the width of a horse's backside determined the US's space shuttle dimensions. Quite an interesting story on that one.
I mean, I'm just thinking, all right, there's got to be a reason.
And it's a Roman horse's backside too. It's not just any horse's backside. It's a 2,000-year-old horse's ass determined how big the space shuttle could be going up into space. Long, complicated story. Well, it's an easy story, but anyway. So if you want to know, let us know in the chat, and I will bore you with some useless historical trivia, which, yes. Anyway, so there we go. Right, cooking. Cooking has been around for a long time. Humans require cooking to happen. Some interesting things about cooking in Finland, for example. Cooking was not so much a thing. You would salt stuff, you would pickle stuff, you would have a porridge that was made, and you would drink vast quantities of beer, generally about 1 liter to 2 liters of beer a day for the average staff member in a typical medieval setting within Finland. Why would you drink so much beer and not water? Well, quite specifically, the beer hid the taste of the food, which generally by the stage that the staff got to eat it was slightly off. So you didn't want to taste the bad flavoured food, so you would wash it down with beer. Beer is also a very, very strong source of all sorts of carbohydrates and nonsense.
But why? I mean, did they not have fire at this point? They didn't realize...
No, they did.
Hey, let's cook this steak. And then it won't. I mean,
well, it was fish. A lot of the food was fish that the peasants
got seafood. Eaten. So,
yeah, but you pickle it. But you pickle it in the fish season, and then you've got barrels that just sit. They didn't have refrigeration, so you've basically got barrels of pickled fish sitting for months, or possibly even longer. And when you pull that fish out, their preservation techniques weren't as good. I mean, the Chinese had a system in Mongolia. It's a terrifying system. They would take a whole pig. They would gut it of all of its internal organs. Then they would salt it, and then they would put it underneath their bed, underneath their sleeping bed, and they would sleep on this thing for a year, where it slowly just
turned into
pig
jerky,
basically. Yes. So there's all sorts of things, but beer generally was used to hide the flavors. So that's beer for you. Metal, of course, very, very unusual kind of substance that most cultures got to metal by the time of the Industrial Revolution. There were very few that were still living on stone. Aborigines were still on stone. That's because metal isn't found very frequently. Africa had found stone, not from mining, but from within the rivers and from natural payloads and things that had washed up to the surface. So metal's been around. It's a very useful kind of tool, and the evolution of human history has gone literally the Bronze Age, where bronze was our strongest metal, to iron, and then finally to steel, which is where we are now. And one of the reasons why the US dominates the world is because of the amount of steel that they had and the fact that they don't have to buy it from China, who is also one of the world's largest manufacturers of steel. Communication, of course, communication. We spoke a little bit about the cuckoo. We're not going to speak too much more about that, other than the fact that one of the reasons why the Romans were so effective and one of the reasons why they built so many roads was, A, apart from being able to move troops around their borders, B, it was primarily for the dispatches that were sent out. And there would be little posts every... I think it was about every 40 miles, I stand to be corrected, but the distance that a horse could safely run at almost full speed over the course of a day would be where a next post is for the rider to be able to swap horses and carry on riding throughout the night, so that you could get this massive communication network. Literally operating within 4 days, you could get a message from Rome to anywhere within the empire, excluding England, which is again one of the reasons why England was never really colonized completely by the Romans and why they eventually pulled out. It was just too much hassle for that tin that they wanted. So anyway, those are some interesting things. Vegetation, of course, vegetation is very, very interesting. You look at sparse vegetation in deserts and how the cultures live there. The Khoisan from southern Africa, they dig up root tubers, and there's very specific ones that you dig up. You look at the cacti in Mexico, where you cut the cactus in half and there's plenty of water inside of the cactus, so you can survive on that sort of thing. You then go to the Amazon jungle, where there is so much vegetation that most of it tries to eat you. It's interesting how vegetation affects you. It really, 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 really is. It's safer to drink water in the Sahara than it is to drink in the Amazon, for example, because of the amount of bacteria that exists in the one and not in the other. Speaking of railway lines, actually, the Chinese, who were brought en masse to help build those massive, massive rail networks over the length and breadth of the US, they generally suffered less than their counterparts, the Americans who actually working on the train lines, because they drank green tea, which requires you to boil the water
it first, yep.
Whereas everyone else was just drinking out of the creek or the river nearby and getting all sorts of wonderful infections. So anyway, that's a long story around those 5 things. So get your 5 things coming through and let's go from there. I don't know if Restream has stopped. What is it? It has 6 minutes. I need to fix this problem. Okay, so I'm going to restart Restream chat because I've lost questions coming through. I hope you are sending through your ideas coming on that topic. Fast-growing plants that devour clouds of smoke in minutes and are able to ride the air like giant spores or seed pods, says DG.
That's cool.
I do
That's
like that.
Really cool.
I do.
But can you turn that? Can you turn that into a story plot or something around that, or is that just something that would set the tone of the world for the players?
I think it's both, but yeah, I think yes, absolutely. I think you could. Well, you'd be describing these plants, these fast-growing plants that devour clouds of smoke. Extremophiles are the bacteria that live around the vents of volcanoes under the ocean. Here on Earth, they live in temperatures of they literally live in boiling water. So yeah, it's definitely not beyond the realm of possibility. And then riding in the air like giant spores or giant pods is great because we know thermals rise, and if you're swallowing smoke, you're going to rise up. So you could use that for transportation. You could use it as an adventure. Absolutely.
Ooh, very cool. Yeah.
I could almost imagine you have these different floating pods or plants, and the characters are standing on one and their target is on another one. They kind of leap across, and And they're all
floating
moving,
like
right?
big lily pads floating up in
I
the
love it.
clouds.
There we go. Look at
Have
that.
this just
Look
like
at that.
awesome battle,
That's
or
it.
maybe even you could see like from the ground, you could see maybe they swarm like maybe it's a moving plant, right? So it's in the
Right.
clouds, it's moving. So because it's seeding off nearby, they would probably roll across in a big clump. It wouldn't be one or two or
Right,
three.
right,
It
right.
would probably be like kelp or not kelp. What's the little
Yeah,
whatever. You know
kelp,
what I'm
forests, and the like. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
something like that.
I
And it would
do
just
like that.
roll across the sky and blanket the sky for maybe a day before that herd or
Right.
cluster or whatever passes on. That
Moves
could
on.
make really cool stuff.
I do think so. I do think so. Kate Anchon says, story. Writing is not at all done on anything that could burn. So this is right. So writing is not done on anything that can burn. Signs would be made of stone, and for quick notes that cannot be carved into stone, thick insulated scroll cases. Yes, you could go that route. I think we can push it a little bit further. I like the idea of them being written on stone. What if they were a collection of stones? So you had a bag, and into the bag you just kind of put warning would be a red stone, something along those lines. Of course, the bag by the time it arrives is like, okay, what's the message? And then they pour the bag out, and it's like, well, what order were the stones in?
Did you see? Okay, so to expand on that, did you see the recent Yeti movie that was done for kids or whatever? I don't know what the name of it is. I don't remember. I have a 6-year-old. We went to go see it. Came out in November. It's the whole movie's about Yetis and stuff.
Lovely.
They have a stone speaker, which is basically a guy who's like their big shaman. The end.
Right.
The cool concept is he walks around and all of their laws are written on stones that he wears, and it's literally just pounds and pounds and pounds of stones, and he's basically like the law keeper. So you could have something along those lines of people who set out warnings or direct things or pass along. Literally your couriers would have to deliver stones. Your couriers would literally have to deliver stones if they're not using other magical means, of course.
Yeah.
That would be interesting, or something maybe kind of cool.
I do like that. I do like that. White Tiger 225 says fire is food, but as you devour the heat, you leave a cooled area. These cooled areas found by human explorers turn into settlements, creating some of the first true cities that the Plane of Fire ever hosted. Elementals, not needing shelter or the like, feed like graze animals, despite being highly intelligent, or at least having the mental capacity to do so. Only after material plane explorers showed up did fire elementals begin making settlements to trade for fuel sources to reheat the grazing areas. That's pretty cool. I like that. That sets up a whole bunch of conflict. Conflict is always good. You've got these fire elementals grazing. I like the idea of them sort of grazing on the plains of fire. I think that's pretty cool. And that the heat sort of lowers down and sort of almost needs to be regrown or repopulated. I think that's an awesome idea. So yes, lovely idea. Communication. Parchment is made from salamander skin or other flame-based animals, says Matthew Saf. I think that's quite fun.
Makes tons of sense.
Does we need to go and hunt 50,000 salamanders? So there we are. Skywrite for
Any
long-distance
hides.
messages.
I mean, any hides that they have
Yes,
would make.
yes.
Yeah, of course, that would make perfect sense. Yes, duh.
Yeah. Along the same lines, this is from Amaranthian Apocalypse. Along the same lines, runners and sleds are fairly popular, as the high surface area lets them slide over the unstable terrain without disturbing it and getting bogged down. So yeah, we could use sleds and things, absolutely, without a doubt. Diablo Bob says, story
big
and
slopes of ash.
yeah, absolutely. It kind of slides through all of that. That's pretty cool. Diablo Bob says, story enhancement. Nuclear fusion is used primarily as a power source for the elemental transports. However, since the material that is suitable for such fuel is only found in the center of stars, the battle for the fuel spills over into the other planes in the form of stars. Well, there we go. Absolutely. Yeah, we can go nuclear fusion. Let's take it out of fantasy and just push it forward. I like that. Plutonium, uranium... I'm trying to think, are they stable at high temperatures? They have to be because they generate high temperature. But they do slowly break apart. Yeah, I think that could be quite fun. Fire beacons exist, says Dylan McCarroll. Fire beacons exist, a mix between semaphore and smoke signal. The intricate mix of timings and patterns to make signals with these flames are only mastered by a select few. I could see you also kind of throwing in different colors of smoke to kind of create even more intricate kind of stuff. So there we go. Look at these great ideas. So there's lots of great ideas, and this is just by probing and asking questions about that. There was some speak of the vegetation being like coral, but it's charcoal. So when you walk through it, you get covered in these black stripes of charcoal as the plants almost draw on you. I quite like that. So yes, all right. So good ideas coming through. Cody, we're almost at the end of the time that we said we were going to chat for.
Sure.
So I think yes. Are there any last questions for Cody? Okay, so Ashley Lindsay has a question that's come through. When DMing, do you have regular out-of-game conversations with your players about their characters' backstories, secrets, and goals long after the campaign has started? And if so, what are those conversations like?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I 100%. Yes, I do. I know that there are some DMs that I feel like sometimes DMs are so worried about immersion. They're so worried about a peek behind the curtain. And then, of course, there's other DMs that are just like, oh, yeah, I fudged this roll, which is a terrible thing to do. Don't ever tell your players win it if you fudge. But, yeah, I think that candidness is always has served me well. Hey guys, here's what's going on. I have chats with my players about their characters sometimes, and I kind of like to tell them, hey, we're vague stuff. Hey, we're kind of drifting to the back half of the campaign. Do you have a place you want to take your character? Do you feel like you've had a static character for the front part of the campaign? Are there things that you want to explore? Do you want to have more of a dynamic growth and development with that character? If so, you may have about 3 or 4 months to do that, so once a week gaming session. So, be thinking about that. I like to have all of those conversations with players. Again, I think if you just straight up Wizard of Oz, pull the curtain back, that may not be the best way to do it, but I do like to, I don't worry about immersion so much that I cannot have those conversations with my players to make sure that they're enjoying where their character is going or doing and things like that, and make sure that they are really having the best experience that they can at the table. And then I can play off of what they are wanting, what they're looking for, things like that.
Perfect. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that, yes, the only thing I might add to that is by asking your players those questions mid-game, you can figure out all kinds of extra adventures that you can add in if you want to extend the campaign. And you can also reflect back, and if you sort of say, okay, well, what's your backstory? And the player's like, oh, I don't really care. You know that they haven't bought into your game, so you need to rethink and relook at that. So asking questions are absolutely fantastic. All right, there is a question directed here specifically for Cody. It's from Dead Aussie Gamer, and he says, some of your videos have been quite impassioned. What has been your most passionate video so far?
Man, I don't know what the answer. I mean, obviously I had the rant, and a lot of people think that the rant was like not like fake, or like that they were trolling me more than that. And I want to show you that I made that video. I specifically tabled it so that I could come back to it when I was less angry. And I think the funniest thing, the comment that I get kind of often on that video is people find it. It's one of my first few videos. It's probably the first video I had that quote-unquote went viral, because I think Dave and Ted from Nerdarchy made a response to it. And so suddenly I had a huge flood of Nerdarchy fans kind of coming over and discovering the channel. One of my favorite comments, guy, on that is that when I get really angry, apparently my Texas accent begins to come through, which
Your Texan is showing. Oh my God!
Apparently, I get kind of upset, and I've had dozens of comments about my Texas accent that is not typically present. So that would probably be it. Yes, that one. I think I had to bleep 147 words or something close to that number in the video. I went on a rant. It's the one and only rant I've done.
There we go. Right. So comments, people saying, yes, the rant. Absolutely. Yeah, there's some other big questions coming through, but they're quite complicated things to ask. Ben Schwartz, one last question for you, Cody, before I let you go, if you don't mind. This last question, any advice, this is from Ben Schwartz, any advice to help motivate players who don't like to RP as much, so you can encourage them to be part of or start their own interactions in the session? Any advice for them?
Yes, I made a video on it.
Here we go.
I made a video on it. I think it's actually one of my, it's before I started clickbaiting everything. That's just a funny quip for me and Guy. Yeah, I think it's ways to how to shine the spotlight on your players. I made a video on it. It's one of my earlier videos, but I don't remember everything I said in the video. It does have some good advice in it. One tip that I will give you, however, is well, besides just the fact of, hey, consider maybe they, I get that they're not role playing, and you probably want them to role play, but is what you want more important than their comfort level in the game? So take that into consideration. Two, definitely try to get them involved anyways, because sometimes when people have that experience, they'll kind of break free from their shell. The piece of advice I'll give you, here's a dirty little DM tip. It's dirty. It's a dirty trick. Look at their character sheet, find a language that only they speak, and create an encounter, a social encounter that uses that language specifically so that they must translate for the party. That is a dirty little DM trick to pull a character who is sitting in the back out of their RP shell.
That really is a sneaky, sneaky trick. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. There are many more questions coming through for Cody, but your time, you said you got some time with us. It is up. So, Cody, thank you for being part of the show today. It was very
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for letting me bully my way onto your stream.
No, it's not a problem. Literally this morning, Cody was like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I've got a live stream coming. So, oh, want to be part of the stream? Yes, come on. Absolutely. Have some fun.
I've been bored all week. Guy, I didn't post a video this week. I recorded two. I didn't post a video this week, and I was like, man, I just want to talk to some people. Guy, let me come on your stream, man. So thank you for letting me come on, man. I really do appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Comments coming through. That is dirty. You are dirty. Is what people are saying. That's fantastic. All right, Cody from Taking 20. Thank you very, very much. If you haven't checked out his channel, please go and have a look at his channel. He's got amazing stuff. You can't miss him. He's the biggest. He's going to be the biggest on the internet. You watch. You watch.
Saber Dice starts Wednesday.
That's right.
So, well, for some of you Wednesday, for some of you Thursday. Starts Wednesday. Oasis, and Guy and I are both in that, and come hang out with us and David Nerdarchy and Jacob with XP Level 3 and a whole bunch of other awesome, amazing people. Mike, Lauren, and also go support Guy on Patreon.
Oh, yes, that would be great.
I love you, buddy.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Cody. Goodbye. All right, so that was Cody from Taking 20. What an absolute pleasure to chat to. I can't wait to have him on the show again. Maybe, who knows? Bombard his Twitter. Find him on Twitter, and we can make some more stuff. Right, we've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. For you to look at, for you to unpack. Before we go anywhere else, the creator, I'm just trying to close down Windows here, end meeting for all. Yes, okay, good. And then I can move the chat back to where it used to belong, which is over there. Good, thank you, Guy. Please keep praising Cody. He's so humble. He never talks about himself. Says Unmade Gaming in giant words. Please keep praising Cody. Unmade Gaming, that's one of the players, Mike, who will be joining me and Cody in the Oasis Save or Dice game. That's on the Save or Dice YouTube/Twitch channel. Comes out every Wednesday. I'm not sure of the exact time frame. They're going to shoot me, but it definitely comes out every week, starting from next week Wednesday. What's today? Saturday. Yeah. So from Wednesday moving forward. So that will be a lot of fun. Okay, we've got some more questions, but first, before we get there, we were talking about the 1st of May. We were talking about the 4th of May, and there's a reason why we were talking about the 4th of May, and that is because, and I'm just gonna lean over this way for a little bit. That is because of this. Now, World Anvil, of course, they are sponsors of How to Be a Great GM, as well as the Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which I will be running. They are offering you 25% discount on their Master and Grandmaster memberships. and they asked me to mention this. So I said, yes, absolutely. Happy to mention it because it is a good discount. So if you've been thinking about getting World Anvil, now is the time to grab it. The first 100 people to sign up will get that at 25% off of their Master and Grandmaster memberships. This poster will be available on our Discord server as well. If you want to remember that code, May the 4th. So use that code and you will get there. Now, it is important when we look at World Anvil, it is a world creation package deal. It has a lot to it. And I use it for all sorts of things, and I keep discovering more things, even though I've done videos on what you should look at when you're using World Anvil. And there is a free-to-use version as well. It just means people can access what you've done, which, in my case, I really don't mind. So have a look at it if you haven't. It is something worth considering if you need a space to collate all of your ideas. And that's for role players as well as for people who are writing stories and novels and the like. Right, so that's World Anvil. I'll bring that up a little bit later on again when we get there. With Ghosts of Saltmarsh, I see there's some questions coming through on Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Let's see, where is that? Do you already have the new Saltmarsh recorded? Do you have the new Saltmarsh resource? I have been given the Ghosts of Saltmarsh resource, and no, I can't share it with you. I'm literally under legal contract not to share very much at all of what is in the actual book itself until the 21st of May. However, if you watch my new series, which is on YouTube at the moment, campaign, it's called Game Planning, Session Planning, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, giant label there, you will see me starting to take you through how I'm prepping the campaign. And by default, there are going to be spoilers coming up as we get closer and closer and closer to the actual launch of the event, which is the 25th of May. So there will be some spoilers in there. So yeah, just bear that in mind. So something to look out for. Pickles and Chips, howdy, been watching your vids lately, and I got to say I'm enjoying your content. Pickles and Chips, thank you for that, very kind. Well, there we go. Cody's going to be on our show every single week, that way I don't have to worry about paying for Gen Con. Cody, thank you for that donation, really do appreciate it. Cody from Taking 20 is now the new monster to beat for today's show. If you want to topple him, that's the way to go. Right, we're going to do a few more questions, and then I will announce the players, the official players for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, so that you can have a look and go, or you can go, ooh, and for they are very sexy people and very good role players as well. There was a question that flipped past the screen while I was chatting to Cody about cherry-picking players, choosing your players specifically for what you're looking for. And I have to say, I can get rid of this now. I have to say that I think I don't think that it is ever wrong to select your players and to select your GM. And I think that there are many times that one has to decide based on performance in game rather than on friendship. I have many friends that I don't like role-playing with. And they're avid role players, but we just don't fit as a role-playing pair. It doesn't work. And I've also had times where I've had all my friends around the table playing, and they don't work in game. Out of game, they're the best of friends, but in game, oh boy, it's chalk and cheese and cats and dogs, and they're just fighting all over, and it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. So yes, cherry picking I think is important. If you are looking for groups, I'm going to say it, rpgtablefinder.com. It is the website that we created. The Web Goblin created it for us. So that allows you to find groups, and that gives you some biography on the players. It allows you to talk to the players before you start your group. So it isn't sort of like a blind dating service. It is fully integrated. You can chat to players before they join your table. You can chat to the DM before you join their table, and you can really kind of get a feel for what you're in for before you actually commit to that. So there is something to bear in mind. Some more questions. Hell has said, I have a Glabrazu bound to a cleric PC who only asks for protection from other creatures that could do her harm. How would I, the DM, roleplay this high-tier demon bound into servitude? I would personally have this high-tier demon that's bound into servitude I would have it continuously trying to tempt her into doing evil. That's the very first step. If you look at it, the Glabrazoo, if I remember correctly, is not the brightest of creatures. I'm just going to grab this now quickly so I can give you an accurate description. It is a demon. So we go to D. Glabrazoo, Glabrazoo, Glabrazoo. Wherefore art you? You are not a demon. You're a demon, not a devil. Now, you know, demons and things, whether this is 5th edition or whether it's any kind of setting whatsoever, when you're starting to deal with evil creatures and they're bound to the heroes, temptation is always going to be first and foremost on their mind. They are chaotic evil. They are these giant, terrifying looking creatures. That's this one over here, these kind of claw-based things. Very, very scary, if you ask me. But, yeah, I would have it constantly trying to manipulate this young druid into doing their bidding some way or another. That's what I would do. Is I would try and twist it and tweak it and get them to do things that they don't want to do. Okay, next question that has come through. The Board Lich says, advice on getting back into gaming after suffering a family tragedy. I'm not depressed, but I find myself wanting to stop moping around, absolutely, but I lack the usual inspiration. I would suggest that you get somebody to GM for you. Participate in that game and use it as a source of a moment to reflect, perhaps. You could even try to embody the best of the person or the tragedy that has befallen. Try and look to those things. I know that when my grandmother died, she had a huge influence on my life. One of the things she always continuously used to say to me is, oh, you should write down those silly stories that you keep making up, because someone will pay you money for them. She was desperate for me to get a decent and honourable career. Television, I don't think, really satisfied her too much. She was hoping for me to move more into lore and that kind of thing. But there you go. And when she passed away, I know that I threw myself into gaming and had these strong feminine types, because that's what she was, and certainly helped us to grow as people. So I would look at doing that. If you can't actually run the game yourself, then get somebody else to run it for you. But embodying the best of those memories, I think, can be a great way of looking at that. Okie dokes, next question. Maxim Win says, in my campaign, I'm thinking of using a wider variety of characters, Tritons, Kenku, in addition to most of the ones in the PHB. What is your opinion on a good number of races? Maxim Wins, this is an excellent question. And I'm going to use it as a way of segueing into the cast for the Ghosts of Saltmarsh Adventure campaign that I will be running. And the idea of all of the different races, a lot of times we have been built to think about alternative races based on what Hollywood has done, and Hollywood has been a very it has been a very fickle role model for us as storytellers, because the Hollywood model is based off of making money. So they want to make money. That means that they're going to make movies that they think the masses want to see. And in the case of Hollywood, the masses are Americans. Sort of middle income earning Americans of principally the human kind. They don't really make movies for others. As a result, what Hollywood has done, and actually what most movie companies and television companies have done, is that they have made the human the most important character, and the human is always there. Aquaman, for example, the entire thing is humans, and there's some really cool races. There's like these merfish folky things. We barely get to see them. The rest are all humans. Humans. It's so dull. It's so boring. I think that it is just absolutely mind-blowingly painful. One of the shows to look at where they said, you know what, we're not going to have humans as our standard massive race complement was Farscape. I loved Farscape. Even though Farscape had some ridiculous ideas and it was definitely hand puppets and that kind of thing, they said, you know what? Humans are not the most populous people. Yes, the humans that do the most action are, well, the species that do the most action are going to be humanoid because of budget. But we're going to have giant aliens, we're going to have weird aliens, we're going to have more aliens on the ship than humans, which is something that has never been done before in sci-fi, which was fantastic. It really was great. There was another show in the 90s, which was a terrible show called Space Precinct 2190 something, or Space Precinct 2020, some ridiculous date, where they had these very curious alien, sort of hammerhead type alien things, but it was a sci-fi cop series written like a 1980s cop drama, but just with aliens in space. They didn't really push the genre very far. So I think having more variety of races is a good thing. It allows us to explore things. So like the Creative Writing Challenge, which this next part is coming up, by the way. The next part is coming up. The Creative Writing Challenge is all about how would this environment affect your character. The next question is, how does your character then interact with an environment that is normal, that is the prime material kind of Earth style type of thing? So there we go, something to bear in mind. I'm going to do some more questions very quickly. Let's see. Eric McCurran says, how do you feel about intellect devours as a collective big bad? I don't see many people use them, and I think they'll give a decent mix between combat and intrigue. Intellect devours are a lot of fun, and yes, people don't use them very often because they are terrifying when it comes to the party. So how you would balance that between the party's survival rate versus intellect devourers, and what happens if the intellect devourers get hold of the party's memories and dreams and thoughts and things, is going to be, I think, very, very interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. It's a terrifying thought too. Imagine walking into this cavern and the next minute there's one intellect. The intellect devourers are the brains with legs and claws, if I remember correctly. I want to say yes. You have all these brains suddenly standing up on all of the shelves looking at the players. I think that could be absolutely terrifying. I think that could be lovely. So yes, I think a bit of a balance would be required. What sort of defenses would there be against those kinds of things? Honorable 596 says, I want to create a mixed high and low magic world. High in that literally everyone has magic, low in that there is no magic higher than 5th level. If the players want to access a higher level magic, then they will have to create it themselves. What are your suggestions about this idea? Well, I think today's creative writing should be helping you tremendously. And it is something that you will have to look at. If magic is so prolific that anyone can cast create food and water, purify, let's see, 5th level, so that's Wall of Stone. You've got unseen servants running around, so slavery is a waste of time. You know, you've got all of these things that you can contemplate and say, well, what would that world be like? That's an incredible rabbit hole to jump down, because there is lots and lots and lots to look at. And think about, if magic was real, would we need the wheel, for example? Would we need metal? Why bother? What do we use metal for? Hitting things hard. Well, Bigby's clenching fist, or clenched fist. What is it? Bigby's grasping hand. Clenched fist, grasping hand, swiping hand, chopping hand, Vulcan hand. Bigby had a whole bunch of hands. You know, if we have all of those things, then do we need metal? Do we need the wheel? Do we need to worry about cooking if we just create food and water? You know, so it does raise some interesting questions. The whole population having access to it, well, that's fine. That's just part of your environmental setting. The players wanting to make higher powered spells, super cool. Why haven't others? If the players can, why haven't others done it? And if they have done it, why hasn't the whole population done it? So I think you need to look at that and just unpack that in terms of keeping balance going and doing that. Brain puppies, I think, is the most awesomely terrifying idea. All these happy little things coming bounding towards you, their little tongues out and their little tails wagging, if they had tails. I'm not sure if they had tails. Anyway, and then suddenly leaping onto the players. I think that could be absolutely, absolutely terrifying. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. A question, Archanchum says, I have made a very squishy character, negative con modifier, and I'm afraid that I'm making balance difficult for my DM since there are such huge gaps between my character's health and the party. Is there anything I can do as a player to help out? Yes, have your character avoid the combat in some shape or form. Have them focus on providing support for those that are in combat. Also have your character chat to the other player characters and say, look, I am terrible in combat. How can I help you without causing you to have to worry about keeping me alive? I would turn it into a conversation piece. I would then have that character go on quests to find or try and find things that make them healthy or that allow them to be protected from their enemies. I would drive that kind of adventure opportunity more than anything else. So that's where I would look in terms of my inspiration and how to bring balance to that whole thing. So there we go. Now let's look at the players who will be joining me in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Now these players have been drawn quite literally from all over the world. And each one represents, in some shape or form, a role player who has had some kind of significance within the role-playing community, or is somebody who is perhaps, well, they are all good role players, let's put it that way. But each of them, we kind of went through a list, we looked at it. I sat down virtually with Wizards of the Coast, and we looked at them as potentials as well. And everyone went, right, this is it. This is our group. So here are the group. How did we choose these people? Well, some of them are people that I have role-played with before who fit the bill. That's two of them. Two of them. So there was this two people that I have played with before. They both happened to be in different parts of the world, which fit the criterion that we were looking for, because we were very specifically looking for people who were not based in America to join the stream because of the strange time that the stream is happening. Now, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, it's at 1 p.m. Pacific time, which is actually 8 p.m. GMT. So the show was always designed to be European-centric in terms of the timing and accessibility factor, because so often what's broadcasts happen when Europe is asleep. So we said, okay, well, let's try and refocus that. It works out better for those of us who are not necessarily based in the States. So the very first individual who gets to join us, I'm going to bump them to the top, and I hope this works. The very first individual to join us on Ghosts of Saltmarsh is Mara from Germany. She is a prolific producer of content and material within the German space. She has been running a YouTube channel called Orkenspieler for almost 10 years. She has been part of that channel in terms of production, just producing content on everything from role-playing to LARPing to tabletop wargaming. She is traveling around. She's in the UK this weekend or next weekend for a Warhammer tournament type of thing. Just absolutely everywhere in the space of role-playing, fantasy role-playing, let's put it that way. So yeah, she's been not Spieler, Orkenspalter TV, which is a German YouTube channel. It is in German, so if you speak German, sprechen Sie Deutsch, go and watch it. It's a great channel to have a look at. She's produced reviews. She has written supplemental material for game books. She has actually written game books on game mastering. She does cosplay. She's a costume crafter. Let's see, if she's not reading, she's crafting or decorating the battle map for the next actual play session with giant spiders. She likes spiders. She travels and creates documentaries. Orkenspalter TV is where you will find her, and they're on Instagram and Facebook, and she's always happy to talk about gaming, comics, and science fiction and fantasy in general. So there we go. She is just a lot of role-playing happening there. Okay, next Michael Kesevan, our dead Aussie gamer. Michael from Australia. Michael's been running around as a Pathfinder advocate for many years, but we've forgiven him for that, and he's now converted to the dark side. He will be playing in a Dungeons and Dragons game with me. Michael played Mutaru on the Adventures of the Windswift many years ago. He and I have played in many games together. Space Ghost Supreme, Orkenspalter is correct. That is the correct spelling for Orkenspalter TV. So yeah, Michael will be joining us all the way from Australia, and he and I have created a custom race which he will be playing, and no spoilers just yet on what that is, but he will be playing this custom race, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. So there we go. Right, so that is Michael. Michael has done all kinds of stuff, and principally, which is something that I take my hat off to him, he quite happily works with children, and he works with people at his local community center to look after kids' daycare, as well as regular human beings as well. And online, of course, he's available as Dead Aussie Gamer, where he has a presence on Twitch and on YouTube. He's also been on Nerdarchy and Color Circuit. So yes, he is a trained actor. Michael is a lot of fun. If you haven't watched him in Broken World Chronicles, then I suggest you do. But he is a lot of fun. So look out for him there playing a custom race that he's been working on. We've been sort of hammering it and checking it for balance and the like. That will be available in the supplement that I will be releasing on the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. That will be after the 21st of May. Right, so that's Michael from Australia. Next up, we have Jenny from Sweden. Jenny joined me for the Broken World. Jenny joined me for the Adventures of the Windswift a year ago, almost to the day that she joined us on the Windswift, playing the enigmatic Adrasai, the librarian who turned into all kinds of things. Jenny is taking a very different role in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and, they're going to bring a whole different take to the world. They ran Vampire LARPs in Sweden, they've run MMOs, so just had an absolute blast within the role-playing space, and Jenny is, let's just say that there won't be any books involved. Well, there won't be many. There will be some books involved in the adventures. In Ghosts of Saltmarsh, but not a lot. Their last character was consumed by a library and became almost like a bibliophile type of thing. Lots of fun. So there we go. Our next individual, because there are 5 people. This is someone whom you may or may not have noticed or seen or come across. If you haven't, you are in for an absolute treat, because this next individual is a map maker of note. Mark. You don't know him as Mark, you know him as Kaora. Kaora is a phenomenal map maker. He hand draws his own maps. He doesn't use software like I do. Although he, let's just say there's some interesting collaboration happening with some people that I collaborate with on a frequent basis. But nonetheless, Kaora, he's a fantasy cartographer. He's based in the UK. He's been playing RPGs since he went to university. He's a lifelong gamer. He's a little bit obsessive about 5th edition. And yes, he is making some of the maps that you will see featured in the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. When I asked him to join us, he said, "Oh, that's fantastic, but can I make all the maps?" And I went, well, you know what? Yes, sure, fine. You can make all of the maps. Absolutely. So he's been involved in several Kickstarters. Humblewood was one that he was recently involved in. You can find him on Twitter at Kaora. That's Caeora. Yes, I understand. I will put this into the chat because it's a collection of vowels and a few consonants. So there we go. At Kaora is where you will find Kaora's work on Twitter. Have a look if you haven't. Otherwise, if you want to find him online, it's www.blueswordgames.com. blueswordgames.com. He is going to be playing a race which I hadn't even heard of before. They've been around for quite some time, but they've kind of been on the back of everyone's minds. So I'm looking forward to the character that he's playing, and if anyone makes the joke quoting the song I Am Blue, well, I forgive you. Then finally, the queen of World Anvil, I suppose you could say. Someone whom, when I role-played with, I couldn't stop laughing simply because of the crazy shenanigans that happened. Janet from World Anvil, also from the UK. She is joining us. She's been role-playing forever. Let me just find her bio quickly. She is from World Anvil. You will know her if you've watched her shows. She does shows weekly where she talks about world building, how to create interesting and exotic environments. She inspired this week's creative writing challenge. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, she's been playing in Dungeons and Dragons since the age of 11, and has been obsessed with world building and role playing ever since. She's one of the founders of World Anvil, and yes, she has her honors and her masters, by the way, in historical music performance, and she is an opera singer. So yes, expect her to play a bard. I don't know. We'll see. If she does, I'm certainly going to get her to sing for us. I should say that her husband Demetrius took this photograph of her. It's absolutely stunning, I have to say. She is also, apart from being a novelist, an opera singer, and the mother of 3 cats, she's also secretly a velociraptor. So we need to be careful about that. The class she's going to be playing, wow, there is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get on board with these guys. We've got our first meet and greet coming up on Sunday tomorrow, and then Sunday tomorrow for me. We've got our first session 0 the week after that. It is going to be absolutely crazy. Wait, is there another? I thought I was the only one. Only one about what? There's so many things going on in this chat stream right now. It looks like everyone's very excited about what's coming up. I think that is going to be it's definitely something that's going to happen. It's something that's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that all of you will participate, and bring your thoughts and comments as usual. I'm doing the pre-show discussion. That's already, the first one is out on YouTube. If you haven't seen that, go and have a look at that. Okay, so that's the cast for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I thank each and every one of them for participating already. They've got some technical requirements that they have done. They've all signed their contract. For those of you that don't know, behind the scenes of things like, actually, a lot of the, to put it frankly, a lot of the professional shows that happen, there are contracts and legal things that are, I mean, the contract's like 12 pages long with addendums and with this and with that and. So all the contracts have been signed. I'm going to go and print them off after this recording, as a matter of fact, or after the show. And just make them all legally binding. The last individual that you don't yet know is our OBS Goblin. I don't have a fancy picture of the OBS Goblin. We will be joined by an OBS Goblin here in Japan, who's actually from Taiwan, Trevor. He will be running OBS for me during those shows whilst I'm running the game. And then once I move from Japan to the US for a couple of months, it will be taken over by Mike, none other than Game Masters Vault, who I don't see in the chat. I haven't seen him in the chat today, but Mike from Game Masters Vault will be running our OBS once I'm in the USA for the remainder of the show. So they will be the ones behind the scenes, hopefully making sure that there aren't all of the technical things that happen. So there we are. Right, back to the creative writing challenge. So I've been doing a lot of thinking in terms of what is underwater like. Do we need wheels? Do we need this? Do we need that? What are the things that we need to look at? And I see that it does open up a can of worms. So what you have to do is you kind of have to go, okay, so this would be the massive impact. But it's so disruptive. It's so incongruous with what has been established. We need to hold it back. We need to pull it back. We need to bring it down and make it kind of work there. Now, there are some questions coming through. Will the show be on YouTube? Will Ghosts of Saltmarsh be on YouTube? It is an emphatic yes. As to where just yet, I'm not sure. I will have to check. I have written to Watsy saying, okay, well, where does it go and how does it get there and those kinds of things. And we're busy talking about the ramifications there too and thereof. But one way or another, yes, they will be available post-game for that. So yes, you won't miss it if you can't catch the show live. If it is happening when you are working or playing cricket or sleeping, then yes, you will be able to catch that. So yeah, do not fear, do not worry. Okay, writing challenge. We've now had some interesting opportunities to unpack the space, to look at what is in that space. The last thing that we need to then do, and this is really to help us cement this idea. We've got these floating plants that eat smoke. We've got coral charcoal trees. We've got salamanders that have got ice for veins and that need to be kept fired up. We've got elementals grazing on the heat that is generated within this realm of fire. There is something more that we need to just unpack before I think we have a slightly better feeling for the world. And this is for you, for your creative writing. I want you to write down what the character that you created, what their fear is, what terrorizes them. Is it crime? Is it a fire extinguisher? Is it being hit by a create water spell? Are those legal in the plane of fire? Is it that the entire thing might stop? So there was some thoughts about the flames going out and everybody having to come together to cut the flames, to bring the flames back. What is it that brings terror or fear to your character? What makes them afraid? And the important thing with unpacking fear is often irrational. I have a completely irrational fear of snakes, to the point that if I see a snake, there is zero chance of me staying in that environment, regardless of what's happening. I will never forget, I was with the cast of Bacon Battalion, the very original first Bacon Battalion show. We'd gone out to lunch to celebrate the last show, the last episode, at this mega mall casino conglomerate thing. And we had just finished lunch. We were walking to go and play games at the gaming hall type of thing. And there was this cluster of people gathered around, and one of them was holding an owl. And I went, oh, look, an owl. How spectacular is that? Started moving towards that cluster, and then one of the other individuals of this animal show, whatever, held up a snake. You can ask the Bacon Battalion. I went absolutely white, turned in the opposite direction, took the nearest set of escalators that I could find, and left. I got in my car, I drove out of the parking lot, and I drove home. And then I sent a text message to the rest of them saying, I'm sorry, I saw a snake. I can't stand that building or visit that building ever again. What if the snake escaped afterwards? We don't know. And then went and laid eggs everywhere, so that when I then go and visit, all of the snakes burst out of the walls, the ceiling, the floors, the seat, they're on my plate when my food arrives, and I will die. So no, just never ever going back there. So I have a completely irrational fear of snakes. Look, snakes in South Africa are inherently deadly. They are dangerous, but there is no reason why I have such a big fear. I've never been bitten by a snake, thank God, because I would just die from having something hit against me and realize it was a snake. I would have to cut that limb off anyway. So it's, it is what it is. That's a completely irrational fear. Sharks, I don't mind sharks if they're on the other side of the glass. Snakes on the other side of the glass is not thick enough. The glass is not thick enough. That snake will escape. Nope, 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 nope. So that's my completely irrational fear. So what is your fear for your character in the plane of fire? Is it that they have a fear of salamanders, in which case they're in a precarious situation? Is it, well, you decide. It's your creative story, and drop it into the chat below. While that's happening, I'm going to have some coffee. Some more exciting news coming out from How to Be a Great GM is I have just finished, almost finished, 99.9% finished, the Tokyo sourcebook for a new role-playing system that was recently kickstarted called Carbon 2185. That makes use of the D20 system, so it's not Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, makes use of the D20 system, but it allows you to play it in a cyberpunk setting. I was commissioned, or hired, I suppose you could say, to write the Tokyo sourcebook. So I've been running around Tokyo, looking at the different districts, looking at the different areas, trying to figure out what they will be like in 2185. I've even been consulting with some architectural experts from Japan as well as from the US to try and uncover what has happened. And there's some very interesting ideas that were formulated in the 1960s, which we're now using in the 2185s. Also, looking at environment. What is the environment like around Japan? It's very bleak, the world that was created by the author. Roberts has created some very interesting environments for people to play in. So there we go. All right, so we've got some story ideas coming through. We've got Graxus with his Jorgen story. Jorgen, the Estacol harvester, fears the insects that lay their eggs in the liquid stone. They are small mosquito-like insects that suck heat out of their victims. In small groups, they aren't much of a threat, but Jorgen was chased by a swarm of them as a child, and the memory has burned into his mind. I do like that. Fire bees. Fire bees. Now, Japan has some interesting bees which do a very similar thing, but in a horrifically different way. I did not know this, but the common Japanese bee, when an enemy is found, such as the wasps, which are even more terrifying than the bees, but anyway, when the bee's colony is under attack by a creature, other insects, etc., the bees swarm around said creature, and then they vibrate. They vibrate against each other and raise the temperature of the creature that they have cuddled around to the point that the creature inside boils itself to death. The bees have a very high temperature tolerance, higher than most of the enemies that attack the hive, so they heat themselves up through friction, through vibration, causing the heat within this poor creature that is completely surrounded by these bees to rise up until it dies from having boiled itself alive. Isn't that nice? And that's in the real world. That's literally the bees that are around. How interesting and terrifying is that? So I like that. The fear of internal combustion, says Tyrannatum. Fire wasps, says Jarl Breadmaker. Absolutely. Mokid Lamar says in a fireplane it might be a sort of calcifer situation where he's afraid of going out. Sure. Absolutely. There are fear, says Archancham. Snipap, the fire elemental, fears being suddenly summoned and being forced to fight to the death for a complete stranger in some far-off plane. His dear friend was summoned once and has not yet returned. I love that. That is absolutely making use of the idea of the fire plane where we just pull people out of nowhere and just use them. Portentia says Carbon 2185 looks very, very, very Blade Runner-esque. It is very Blade Runner-esque, and it's been absolutely fascinating compiling this source book because our briefing was, okay, watch Blade Runner, read, absorb as much as you can. Strange Days was another example that was given to us as an option to look at. There are a couple sort of cyberpunk-esque types of things out there, but yes, very Blade Runner-esque, lots of synthetic AI running around and some very interesting stories coming out. I can't speak of the other source books, but the Tokyo source book, I hope, because obviously I'm the one who's written it, I hope will have valuable options, not only insight into Japan, but also valuable insight into adventures that you can run within the Tokyo setting, even if you have never been to Tokyo. I've tried to be as comprehensive in terms of taking the essence of what I have experienced in Tokyo as someone who had no knowledge of Tokyo, because before I moved to Tokyo, I had never been here. I didn't have an interest in Asian culture or in Tokyo for that matter. Post the Edo period, it just was an unknown to me. So I've tried to take that experience of not knowing what the difference is between an onsen and karaoke and sashimi and sushi and all that kind of stuff and make it accessible to someone who doesn't know anything about that. Anyway, that should be a lot of fun. Okay. Now, let's see. Some more options here. White Tiger 225. Hildorf fears dying to their own trade. Water is a terrible, painful way to go. Your flesh hardens and cracks, your very body from the outside, and fails bit by bit, and you feel every moment of it. Water is a terrible chemical weapon, as it is a tool, and there is a reason not everyone deals in the hairy tariffs to import such an exotic substance. The material plane he hears pours water from the sky in many areas. It is a hellhole given form. That is fantastic. I do like that idea of waters. Imagine a bunch of explorers suddenly arrive and they've got this water skin. They are carrying some dangerous weaponry with them. I think that's really cool. Fear while on the fire plane is the fear of the dark. As the plane goes out, absolutely. You wouldn't ever have darkness. So there we are. It is definitely something to look at when we look at how do we unpack this. So the next time you are creating an environment, the next time you are creating a space, you are creating a world, think about these things. Unpack some of the basic things: transportation, communication, fear is an absolutely awesome thing to look at. And then you go, okay, how do they overcome it? How do they mitigate it? I don't live on the ground floor of buildings. That's one way of mitigating things until snakes learn how to use elevators, and I'm fairly convinced that they can, but I can put it out of my mind until such time. The irony was that the first month I got to the house, moving here into Chiba, next to Tokyo, I saw a bloody snake in the middle of Tokyo, basically. I mean, it's suburbia. There's no planes, there's no parks, there's nothing for miles in all directions. So yeah, it was absolutely horrendous to have that fear brought home. Anyway, there we are. Right, let's do some questions. We've got 20 minutes before the end of the show. Let's do some questions. I hope this creative writing has inspired you a little bit to look at trying to twist up the ordinary and not just accepting what we are given in the books and things, but trying to make it work better. For yourself and for your players, giving them something much more interesting to work with. Honorable 596 says, are you going to consider borrowing some of the monsters and lords from the Curse of the Vampire Coast DLC for Total Warhammer 2 for your Ghost of Saltmarsh game? I played Total Warhammer 2 for a long time. I don't know much about the Curse of the Vampire Coast. To be perfectly honest with you, what types of monsters do they have in there? The lords, I can imagine, vampires of the kind, wrecked ship vampires that were drowned and have come back as these weird sort of things. Monsters, I'm not sure. Give me your ideas. I love ideas. So there we are. We've got some more fears coming through. Fear of smoke elementals being practically invisible to the naked eye in the elemental plane that can smother any inhabitant they want. This leads to a fear of smoke by extension. There we go. Absolutely. Nice fear. Nice fear. Dead Aussie Gamer asks, what are you looking forward to most in the game of Saltmarsh? Ghosts of Saltmarsh game. Setting, monsters, story. Without a doubt, it is always going to be the story. The setting is super cool. There is so much for us to explore. What I am looking forward to is, at the same time, what I am fearing. Or not fearing, what I am not looking forward to as well. We've only got 12 episodes to explore this space. And there's so much stuff coming through. We've got so many different races that are going to be represented on the crew. I love it. Absolutely love it. So the stories that are going to come out of that, I think, are going to be a lot of fun. A lot of the players that are involved, such as yourself, Dead Aussie Gamer, look at races and then they try to do exactly what we've done today. Unpack them, look for a different perspective, look for a different take, look for a different reason. How would these beings react? We're going to get all of that coming through. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So that's what I'm most looking forward to, is the narrative that then gets revealed. So that I think is definitely for me the exciting part. Mokidalma says, I need help with how to handle global cataclysms like megastorms, tsunamis, and floods. I have released a video. It's called Catastrophe. It's a catastrophe. that video handles global events and why you should have them and what you should use them for and how they should be played out. So it's a very comprehensive video. I think it covers all of the bases. Have a look at that. It is on the channel, so you can go and look at that when you have a chance, because there is definitely a lot of options there. Eyal Breadmaker says, what is, in your opinion, the most interesting example of a fantasy setting subverting the typical stereotypes of the genre? A fantasy setting that subverts the genre. Let me think. Strictest interpretation of fantasy? Is that what we're going for? I would have to say at the moment it's Bright, the movie with Will Smith, as a setting where it's modern day, but there are elves and there are orcs, and they don't subvert all of the ideas, but they certainly look at things in a different way. Elves are these pretentious, arrogant superstars that drive around in fancy cars and things. I really wish Bright had continued to explore it further, rather than the story that. And I enjoyed the film. It wasn't mind-blowing. I enjoyed it, but I liked what they did with the world a lot better than some other fantasy worlds in terms of subverting what we expected. The entire orc interaction thing, I think, was very good at that. You know, Hellboy was just it didn't subvert. It reinforced, I think, the different stories and things. So anyway, that would be mine. If you have any suggestions, then yes, please send them through. I'm always interested in seeing what others do. Honorable, you recommend I go and watch the trailer? It's 3 minutes long. Sure, I will do that, and then we can talk about it next week. Absolutely. Maxim Wynn says, what is your opinion recommendation on establishing pets, allied creatures for the party, such as each having a living baby dragon that grows with them, or a griffin that is the party's pack mule? Maxim, go and have a look at my video on getting players to fall in love with NPCs. It is a GM video, getting what is it called? Investing in NPCs, or getting players to invest in NPCs. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's definitely in the title. You know, how to get your PCs to fall in love with your NPCs, and pets and allied creatures are part of that discussion. It's quite a long video because there are a lot of things that you can do if you do it well, and if you tie in the pet into the story and into the PC, and how do you do that. There's also other videos on how to treat pets of player characters, familiars, and the like. So there are quite a lot of that. I would thoroughly recommend it if you can pull it off. I would also make sure that those animals don't necessarily contribute to the party during combat, simply because you as the game master are now going to have a lot more to contend with. And druids, obviously, they bring all of their animals that they can summon and that kind of stuff that just slows down combat as well. So bear that in mind. But it is definitely something to look into. Raven9 says, last week I asked about how to handle my Warforge becoming a lore-based sentient weapon, and we used part of your reasoning. It's working. The sword is currently very upset right now and gives a -10 to hit chance, as the one wielding him is not listening to the rules he was given to wield him. But we want them to make amends, but aren't quite sure, as the sword is needed to beat the final boss in the end, but the player who wields him seems unable to listen to the rules set out by the sword. That's the player's problem. That is the player's problem. I would have an NPC who comes up, is that the famous sword constructed out of the Ironborn? I hope you wield it well. Remember the last who wielded it. He refused to listen to its rules, and as a result, it betrayed him at the final moment. Don't do the same thing, and then the character can die. Give them a lore master who comes running up to them and gives them that. You can only do so much as a game master to get the player to get their character to follow the rules. If they don't, that's their funeral, quite literally in this case, as far as I can expect. But yes, that is definitely something that You can only push so far, and then it's done. You can't go much further than that. You cannot go much further than that. So bear that in mind. Honorable 596 asks, would you kindly watch... Oh, yes, I said I would watch it, and I'll come back to you on that. I'm going to watch it now, because that would be rude. But yes, I will have a look at it, and we can talk about it next week, without a doubt. Riley Wyman asks, I'm having trouble with my campaign's never-present nemesis. Aha. But it's a god, and the players aren't yet aware. Excellent, because they seem so out of reach. How do I make them more engaging and impactful in the story? It's a great question, Riley, and what I would do is the symbol of the god, I would make sure that the player characters know that. So that means if you have to create a handout where you've drawn out the symbol of the god to give to them, absolutely do that. Then in the plots that focus around this god's involvement, have that symbol presented there. Allow them to go to a temple where they then ask the temple. You can get them to make religion checks or whatever system that you're using. Get them to make some kind of check which leads them from that symbol to a temple. The temple can then say, oh, but this is the symbol of a god. There might be a religious cult. There might be a this. They can then follow that to a local cult. The cult, refuses to cooperate. There's a big dungeon crawl and a battle with the cult, etc., which is all good and fine, until the final chamber where the party is about to burst in and they hear a voice. And it's the cultist talking directly with the god. As they burst in, though, the cultist screams and attacks them. The god vanishes before they can really see what's going on. They kill the cultist and they discover that the object that the cultist was talking to is so incredibly powerful. It's an ancient artifact that allowed individuals to communicate directly with the gods. The players could activate it. The player characters could activate it, but I would have that as another quest to get them to be able to activate it as not being absolute cultists. Another quest that then leads them to be able to activate it. Boom, they activate it, and suddenly they have a direct link with this god. So that is a journey that you could take them on quite comfortably, I think, for quite a few adventures, building up to the point where they learn the name of this god. How they then are going to deal with that is another question, but that could be a way that you are getting them into the story. Hadnerfallen says, how do you describe demons differently than devils? Sense-wise, look-wise, they are often described very similarly with many shared visual and symbolic cues. Any idea on how you distinguish one from the other? It's a very good question. The only way that I've ever been able to differentiate, to be perfectly honest with you, is to not look at what was done in the Monsters Manual. Because in the Monsters Manual of 5th edition, which is I suspect where you're coming from, there's some write-ups. I don't like them. Demons, to me, are the big controllers of the 9 hells. The devils are the minions and the workers. So I tend to ignore what the book says in terms of its descriptions and things, and I make the devils who work for the demons look like the demons that they work for. That helps to provide some differentiation, in my opinion. Reskinning is something that I do all the time anyway, because it prevents the players from going, oh, it's a giant monster with claws and a thing. Oh, it must be X monster. That means it's got this many hit points, this much armor class, this attack and that attack, and we should attack it with fire. So I reskin monsters all the time, so they go, it's got 12 arms, is purple, and has 15 eyeballs. That's not in the Monsters Manual. No, it isn't. The stats are, but the actual creature isn't. So, yeah, that's what I do. Demons are the overlords. Devils are the minions. And I keep it that way. And for the demons that don't have a lot of power, I just make them devils. That's my short answer to that question. Next question. White Tiger 225. Getting lots of questions this week, which is fantastic. Did you ever get permission to release that plant document we talked about last week? Well, we've come to the end of the stream for today, and I thank you all for watching because I completely forgot. Wait, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do it right now because otherwise I'm going to forget. So downloads, it was a download. I don't know why my Windows keeps doing this. It is so irritating. My downloads keep changing to song and title rather than file type. I'm going to sort by type. I'm going to go and look for an Excel document because I'm hoping. Well, there ain't no Excel document. I thought it was an Excel document. Oh, because now it's no longer just .xle. It's now Microsoft Excel document. So here, Pretoria. I'm just looking for a connection, a name, an email address that I can send this to find out about it. It's not on here. I have to show you. I'm going to show you this because it's it's torture. Let's get rid of that. And we're just going to transition here very quickly. This here. These are all the plants. These are all the plants in this compendium that they've put together. It's absolutely divine. So Yovo root, extremely sweet succulent fruit, very rare to find in the wild, but once seeds are extracted can thrive under specific conditions, tied to magical energies, grants creatures various effects: mage armor, disguise self, invisibility, dark vision, detect magic, dispel magic, dependent on the specific seed and soil quantity, medicinal, sustenance, and alchemical. So it's absolutely amazing. I will see what I can do in terms of finding the author. I forgot. I will do this. This is how my life works, by the way, is on pink Post-it notes. Find author. They must have emailed it to me. Find author of plants. Pretopia. Document. Okay, I will do that. I have written, the Post-it note has been written and has been added to my list of Post-it notes. So there we go. I will do that. I apologize for not doing that. It slipped my mind. Mask Hyreken says, how do you treat former lives for elves based on the lore expanded upon, I think, in Mordenkainen's Time of Foes? I don't know the lore. I'm going to straight up say Mordenkainen's Time of Foes, never heard of it, don't have a clue. I know who Mordenkainen is. I don't know much history about Mordenkainen. How would I treat former lives of elves? So if they've had a previous life, if there's been something along those lines. Well, yes. Look, long-lived races already pose a problem. Why did they not level up whilst they were being long-lived? In the 75 years that the elf was growing up, yes, they were children, and the children don't learn. Sure, but if you started role-playing a 12-year-old adventurer by the age of 15, they could probably be level 10 if they go through the standard kind of adventuring life that we run in our games. So it is challenging, it is difficult, and I think it needs to be done on a world-by-world basis, and you need to talk to your player character or your players about it before they create the race there too. So, in example, the one race that we are creating for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, they have a life expectancy of 12 to 20 years. That's not a long life, and as a player, you need to know that before you start playing the character. Star Trek went a bit crazy, in my opinion, where they had characters that were humanoid that lived to the age of maybe 10 or 11 before expiring. Such a short lifespan. It was a thing they did. No one cared about it, and they kind of wrote it out of the story eventually because it was just silly. So yes, those are things you need to talk to your players about beforehand. Make sure they're comfortable with it. Discuss it with them. They might have ideas to say, well, the elves, after every century they forget. It just happens. They just forget. So there is an option. Oh dear. Restream has stopped again. I'm going to refocus it. So if you've asked questions in between 11:44 and now, please ask that question again, because it's gone. It's gone. It's just gone. It's gone. I hate it. Right. Any more questions coming through? I'm going back to the original ones. Catherine Bischoff on YouTube says, what do you think of a race of intellectual trolls who value secrets, revealing them for a price in the form of riddles? They tend to be covert masters. It's an interesting one. Trolls are oftentimes displayed as just animalistic, regenerative beasts that attack people and have a penchant for living underneath bridges. But yes, trolls who value secrets. I would posit that it could be a network of trolls that are around. They hear things being spoken about at bridges, because some things, you can take the troll out from under the bridge, but you can't take the bridge from out under the troll, or any other species for that matter. Anyway, the idea would be that the trolls would have a secret, and I think if they could genetically store that secret in their hand or in a finger or in a body part, they would then cut that body part off, give it to a courier who would then take this bizarre thing to the next troll, who could then consume that hand and then learn the secrets that were contained therein. That could be a very cool adventure for the players, to find this merchant who's got an arrow in his back, because that's how it happens, and the merchant hands them a box. This must get to the troll of Suba before sunset tomorrow. Please do it. I'll give you 1,000 gold. And he gives them 1,000 gold and he dies. And there's a party hunting, of course, that box. They open up the box and there's this withered troll hand in it. What is going on? And they can discuss that. I like it because it inspires storylines and things. So I think that could be definitely something to look at. Why are they operating in such an intelligent fashion, gathering secrets? I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, without a doubt. Riley Wowman, I'm going to jump over to Twitch very quickly because I don't think my restream has kicked in yet. It kind of has. Anyway, I'll go over to Twitch for some questions shortly. Riley Wyman says, how are some ways to make a post-apocalyptic setting feel full without it feeling overpopulated or underdeveloped? It's sometimes after the cataclysm, but I don't want it to feel unchanged. Let me just unpack that. How are some ways to make a post-apocalyptic setting feel full? Okay, sure, without it feeling overpopulated or underdeveloped. Right. Well, again, I think that today's writing exercise hopefully will have helped you in terms of answering that question automatically. What are the transportation systems that are out there? What is the food preparation? Where does food come from? What is the metal situation? Is it freely available? Is it scavenged? Are they running out of scavengeable metal? Do scavengers have to go further and further away from the habitable zones? How many of the habitable zones are there? Colonies that are of massive size? Massive colonies require massive food. Where do they get that massive food from? If it's smaller colonies and they rely on hunting and gathering and the like, well, that's fine too, but what happens if that starts to run out? So I would look at those kinds of things. Again, have a look at the Campaign Creator series, which has been running now. I think we're on episode 15 on the YouTube channel, where we start to look at creating a world. You don't go massive in terms of data. Keep it small, keep it local, keep it simple, and develop and grow it as you do so. Okay, let's go and have a look at Twitch very quickly. There's some more questions. Are there any questions on Twitch? Let's see. Honorable 596 is saying, I'm going to love Luther Harkon. He's an insane ancient vampire. We always love insane ancient vampires. Now he uses a rapier and a pistol on top of still being a vampire. That is a lot of fun, I think. Whether we have gunpowder in our settings or not, it's up to our setting. It really is up to our setting. Right, more questions. Mo Kiddelmar says, if no one else is gonna, ask questions. Don't feel bad if you're asking 50 questions or one question. They're always good and they're always useful for us all to learn and reflect upon. I'm working on introducing a massive magical machine that will open a portal to another plane. My players need to take it down, and I need encounters. Okay, well, the Adventures of the Windswift has several massive machines in it. So if you haven't watched that series, that is available on YouTube. Just Google YouTube Adventures of the Windswift. You will find that. Now, the idea of massive machines is that they need to be built. They need to be built out of things, and usually it's quite a few things. So get your players' characters to first discover that some of the things have been stolen. And so their first adventure is finding out what's been stolen, or preventing something from being stolen, or recapturing something that's been stolen. that starts the trail. Once the things have been acquired that are needed to build this thing, it needs to be built somewhere, and that somewhere can be another adventure where suddenly a tribe of goblins attacks a convoy for no reason, and the goblins keep shouting, "No home, no home, no home." The player characters discover that the home has been used as a test site for the first machine that was built. So they find ruined machinery or whatever the structure might be right where the goblin home was. They also discover that the goblin home is also a confluence of ley lines, and perhaps that was why the machine was built there. So then they follow the ley lines to where is the next convergence point. Again, and this is just repeating the pattern, they find another building that has been ruined, a second of the machine. When they then figure out where the third one is, and there are maybe only 3 or 4 in this entire continent, that will lead you to your final confrontation with the machine. That's one way of doing it. The other, I mean, there's hundreds of ways of doing it. So always look at giving the players opportunity of finding out about the machine when it's being built, of finding where it's going to be built, then of testing it, and then finally the climax, the showdown for that. If you want a template to help you guide that, head on over to our website, www.greatgamemaster.com, where you will find free templates, and there is one called your Master Plot Adventure Planner. And in that, you'll see we break it down into those 4 steps: getting it, building it, testing it, and then using it. So have a look at that, without a doubt. So there we go. That is what is happening there. Last question before the end of the show, because we are at the end of our time now. So let's see. There aren't any more questions. Wait a minute. No. There are no more questions sitting here waiting for me in Restream. I'm going to look on YouTube. No questions there. You have to put question in front of your word. Oh wait, Brittany Silverton says, I asked this last stream, but what are your thoughts of having the players start the campaign by releasing unspeakable evil unknowingly? Absolutely, without a doubt. You can have them do that. Pandora's Box, the ultimate Greek story of where evil came from. Pandora's Box. So yes, you can do that. I think that the important thing to bear in mind is that one must allow the players, when they release it, they don't know that they're releasing this great evil into the world. Don't make it so that it was their choice, that they knew it was evil and they were going to release it anyway. Make it so that they did not know. Make it so that they thought that it was good. Give them that moral high ground of, we were duped into opening it, we were fooled into opening it, someone else caused it to happen. Go that route rather than them willingly, knowingly going in there and releasing evil, because what happens is then they get guilt, or they get remorse, or they feel like you've tricked them into starting the campaign. You don't want them to feel that. You want them to feel like, wow, we didn't know that this was going to be the consequence, and now we've got to try and fix it. So I would look at it that way before going in any other way, without a doubt. Right. So yes, and there are lots of plots in the 80s, as pointed out by White Tiger, where I screwed everything and now I need to fix it. That's pretty much the running gag of most films where the hero is there because they made a mistake and they're now trying to fix it. Anyway, this brings us to the end of the show. I thank you all for being here with us. I mean, we averaged over 100 viewers throughout the entire thing. There was some damage done to Dead Aussie Gamer. There were some wonderful donations that came through on Twitch from everybody. I do absolutely thank you for that. And on the super chat, we had some amazing stuff coming through, especially from Cody, who was a guest on the show. I'm going to invite more guests. Crimson Tracks also there as well. I see they did ask a question. I don't know if you're still in the channel, Crimson Tracks, with your wonderful donation there. In my campaign, my players have started a weird new tactic in combat, attempting to hit on and or seduce their attackers. How do I stop the party from trying to bed everything and everyone who tries to kill them? It's a tough one because, yes, they certainly do. Players realize the power of seduction to get them out of the way. It's a gender bender. They're trying to seduce, the males trying to seduce a female character, the female characters trying to seduce male characters. Oh, well, that's great, darling, but I'm not interested in your fair gender. I would far prefer the barbarian spoke to me with such a silvered tongue. I would do that. I would also have them counter seduce, perhaps. Or I would simply say, well, you're beautiful and I would love to have you for dinner, but I've been hired to kill you, and if I don't, I'm going to die. And that's much more important than anything else. So, yes, romance has a place, but if you counter seduction with seduction, or you flip it on its head, certainly something to look at. Or have assassins who realize that this is what the party does and have trained and hardened themselves, or they're being attacked by eunuchs, or there are ways and means of trying to discourage that kind of behavior. Letting it happen now and again is fantastic. I would also then have characters that they have seduced in the past now following them and demanding their attention. But you said you loved me. Now you've left me behind. I refuse. I'm going to follow you to the end of my days, and I'm going to screw up all of your sneaking adventures because I'm going to pop up saying, hey, I brought you some roses and stuff. So there are ways and means of encouraging alternative play. There you go. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to bid you all adieu. We will see you again next week. Next week, Friday, same time, same place. There's no Broken Worlds Chronicles until August, so that's taking a break. Oasis kicks off on Wednesday. That's the new Save or Dice campaign where I'm playing a doctor who's nothing but a brain. Oh. I look forward to playing the brain of the operation, quite literally and figuratively. Cody gave me some leeway when creating my character, so you will meet Dr. Colby there. I think Colbray, Dr. Colbray, is not your usual doctor. It's a sci-fi game using Starfinder, so that should be a lot of fun. Hang out with us on the Save or Dice show to not to be missed. Otherwise, yes, great GM videos continue to roll out. There was one that dropped this morning, which is on creating history in your world and how much history you should have and should not have. Temperance is the word there. And yeah, we will see you all again, same time next week. Till then, goodbye.